What if the atmosphere you breathe is not just the air around you, but the emotional climate you create, the storms you spark, the warmth you offer, the pressure you carry? What if the world you think you are reacting to is actually the world you keep shaping through the choices you repeat? This question sits at the heart of Taylor Jenkins Reid's Atmosphere, a story that begins quietly, like a soft wind across the surface of a still lake, then pulls you into a current that grows stronger and stronger until you can feel the weight of every decision, every lie, every unspoken truth hovering in the air. It starts with a man who believes he understands the conditions of his life. David is steady, routine, predictable. He prides himself on being a good father, a good husband, a reliable presence who does not waver. He thinks this is enough. Stability becomes his identity, and he builds his days around keeping everything calm and under control. But the thing about air that stays still is that pressure builds. Cracks form. A storm gathers long before anyone sees it coming. David's marriage has reached that fragile stage where small miscommunications become symbols, where silence becomes a language, where the person you love most can feel far away even when she is sitting right beside you. His wife, Juliana, carries her own quiet grief, her own private disappointments, her own hunger for something that feels alive. She tries to breathe in a house where the windows never open. She wants warmth. She wants movement. She wants to feel the spark again. But she does not say these things out loud, and David believes that if he keeps everything steady, the tension will pass like weather that never reaches the ground. Their teenage daughter, Alice, feels every shift in the emotional air, even when her parents pretend everything is fine. Children always do. Alice is bright and observant, a girl who notices the subtle changes of tone, the slight pauses, the smiles that do not reach the eyes. She senses the storm before the first cloud forms. She does not know how to name the feeling, but she knows something is coming, something big, and then it happens. A moment, a discovery, a truth David did not expect to confront. He finds out that Juliana has been keeping a secret, not out of malice, out of loneliness, out of the simple desire to feel seen again. The revelation hits David with the force of a hurricane. His entire identity, built on stability and control, collapses. He cannot breathe. He cannot think straight. He feels betrayed, undone, humiliated, shattered. The storm breaks open inside him. Taylor Jenkins Reid writes this unraveling with the precision of someone who understands the human heart at its most vulnerable. David becomes a man caught between pain and pride. He wants to forgive, but the wound feels too deep. He wants to hold his family together, but he also wants to run, to hide, to disappear. He oscillates, moment to moment, between wanting to repair what is broken and wanting to burn the whole thing down so no one can hurt him again. Juliana becomes a storm of her own, a woman who made a mistake, a woman who wants redemption, a woman who refuses to be defined only by her weakest moment. She wants to rebuild, but rebuilding requires truth, and truth is painful. She stands in the wreckage of her choices, trembling but determined. Alice is caught in the crossfire. She watches her parents pull apart and come together, again and again, like tides driven by unpredictable moons. She becomes the emotional barometer of the household, changing with the shifts around her. She tries to keep peace, to keep herself invisible, to hold her own storms inside her chest. She grows up faster than she should, and she knows it. The family begins a long, difficult journey through confession, anger, regret, and fragile hope. Each conversation becomes a negotiation, each quiet moment a test, each attempt at healing a reminder of how close they came to losing everything. They are a family walking through rough terrain with no map, trying to learn the weather patterns of one another all over again. As the story unfolds, David begins to understand something crucial. Stability is not the same thing as connection. Predictability is not the same thing as love. You cannot create a safe atmosphere for the people you care about by shutting down your emotions. You cannot protect your family by becoming a wall. You protect them by letting them in. He sees how fear shaped his choices, how he avoided vulnerability by becoming distant, how he reacted to discomfort by retreating instead of reaching out, how he convinced himself that keeping everything quiet and controlled was the best way to keep everyone happy, when in reality, it made everyone feel alone. Juliana confronts her own truth. She sees how her silence created space for resentment to grow. She sees how she expected David to read her thoughts, to feel her pain without her having to speak it. She sees how she let her unmet needs evolve into destructive choices. She understands that the secret she kept was not the cause of the storm, but the spark that ignited all the air that had been building pressure for years. Together, they begin to talk. Not the polite exchanges of a couple trying to avoid conflict, but the raw, honest conversations of two people who finally understand that truth is the foundation of intimacy. They argue, they cry, they confess things they have never said out loud. They rebuild, slowly and painfully, brick by brick. They learn how to breathe again in the same room. Alice watches this rebuilding. She sees her parents fight for their marriage, not with silence or denial, but with real effort. She learns that love is not a feeling, but a decision. She learns that mistakes do not destroy people, but refusing to grow from them does. She begins to find her own voice, to understand her own emotions, to see how her parents' transformation can shape her into someone stronger. Reid crafts every moment with emotional precision. This is not a story about a family falling apart. It is a story about a family learning who they truly are when the masks drop. A story about the atmosphere we create in our relationships, and how that atmosphere becomes the climate children grow up under. It is a story about pressure, and how pressure can either break you or force you to change. The climax of the book arrives not in a moment of dramatic action, but in a moment of stillness. David realizes that forgiveness is not a single act. It is a practice. He understands that loving someone means accepting their humanity, their flaws, their wrong turns. He sees Juliana not as the mistake she made, but as the woman who has stood by him for years, who is trying to reclaim the connection they lost. He sees how much he still loves her, and he sees the cost of letting pride win. Juliana realizes that repentance is not just saying you are sorry. It is showing that you are willing to rebuild trust slowly, steadily, with humility. She knows the damage she caused. She knows the work ahead. She chooses to stay, not because she is trapped, but because she believes in the marriage they can create from the pieces of the one they broke. Alice sees her parents choose each other again, and in that moment, she understands a deep truth about love. It is messy, it is painful, it is imperfect, but it is also powerful. It can reshape the emotional climate of an entire home. It can teach resilience. The resolution does not promise a perfect ending. It promises growth. It promises a new atmosphere, created through honesty and openness. The family learns to check the emotional weather within themselves, to communicate when pressure rises, to share their fears before they become storms. And that is the true heart of atmosphere. The lesson that lingers long after the final page. The reminder that relationships live or die by the air they breathe. The climate you create is the climate you live in. If the air is heavy with silence or resentment, everyone suffocates. If the air is open, honest, warm, and alive, everyone grows. So the question returns to you, the listener, with quiet power. What atmosphere are you creating in your own life? What storms are you allowing to build because you are afraid to speak? What truths are you holding back? What conversations must happen for healing to begin? You do not control everything, but you control the emotional climate you bring into the room. You shape the pressure. You shape the weather. You shape the air others breathe around you. If this story moved you, if it made you reflect on your own relationships, your own choices, your own moments of silence, then step into the next part of your growth. Seek the stories that challenge you. Seek the insights that make you confront your inner storms. Let this be the beginning of a deeper journey into books that do not just entertain you, but transform you.